David DeGuzman in the NBC4 Digital Center. Happy Friday. Ohio State women's basketball, 80-57 winners over Maine in the first round of the NCAA tournament. To help break it all down, we bring in sports director Joe Nugent. Joe, it's been a while since we've been able to say that the Buckeyes are winners of a basketball game, but it's also felt like forever since they've played a game. This was a test of whether they can really bounce back from losing to Iowa, then losing to Maryland. How do you think the Buckeyes did?
Yeah, I think it was really good. I know we had questions coming into it with the fact of them being off 2 weeks in between games, and of course the two losses you talked about. How would they come out right out of the gate? How would they react to playing for the first time in a while and playing a very good team? And what happened? Maine hit their first 5 shots of this game. I mean, a true test, like, okay, here we are. It's the NCAA tournament. But Ohio State definitely handled the situation, led by 6 after the first quarter, pulled away in the second quarter, on their way to the 23-point win. Yeah,
that second quarter, Ohio State outscoring Maine 21-8. If that's any indication of how aggressive that they were going to come out. J.C. Sheldon leading the way, 19 points, 4 rebounds, 4 different players for the Buckeyes scoring in double figures. And I feel like this was going to be a big mental test because when you come off of winning the Big Ten regular season championship against Michigan and then losing to Iowa, then losing to Maryland, that can really be a test of your mental fortitude. This is a good indication of what things could be like moving forward, right?
Yeah, I think it was a great opportunity probably in the 2 weeks to sort of hit the reset button in a sense from that perspective and think of the postseason as a new season, at least the NCAA tournament part of the postseason. And, I think that's what we saw out of this team because it wasn't like one player went absolutely off and that's why they won the game. They had 4 different players in double figures. Their defense was very good, like we saw through most of the regular season, turning Maine over 22 times. So I think it was good that we saw the Ohio State team that we have seen throughout the season. It wasn't necessarily the Ohio State team that we saw in those 2 straight losses, but they were, really good in a lot of different areas. Plus, that second quarter that you talked about, it started with a 16-2 run. We've seen them throughout the year dominate for a 5-minute stretch like that. So doing that again, I thought was also very, very encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, those are great numbers to look at because you're right. I mean, a season isn't, defined by your 2 losses. I mean, this was a team that at one point ranked number 2 in the country. They were undefeated throughout January and February. So again, this was going to be a big question of, whether they can get back to those winning ways. One thing that I thought was interesting from the post-game press conference, talking about how big of a win this would be. J.C. Sheldon saying, it's big for us. I think we've done a good job all season in the Big Ten regular season, especially focusing on the game in front of us. And the next game, that's what we're going to continue to do. We'll stay and watch this game. Same thing, be prepared and just focused on our next matchup. Which is going to come up pretty quickly on Sunday, is their second round game. Any indication for you, Joe, that this is a team that, can get back to being in those dominant performances, being that number 2 team in the country, and a team that eventually could make it to the Final Four?
Yeah, I think they could definitely get back to that. I think that, the point that JC made in the postgame that you were just reading, the point where she said that, hey, we really did a great job throughout the season of truly, taking each game as they came instead of trying to think about the 8-game winning streak we were on, the 9-game winning streak that we were on, the 10-game, I mean, they went on these massive runs, right? And we're like, wow, this is something. You guys are on a huge winning streak. What do you think of it? And they're like, well, we're just trying to win the next game. So I think that's when they're at their best. So I think as long as they can, listen, they should take care of business again on Sunday, sort of start a small winning streak, get back to where they were when they were great in January. And of course, the competition is going to be tough, right? If they advance to the second weekend, you're talking about playing one of the best 16 teams in the country. But when they're at their best, they are really, really hard to beat. And I definitely think that there's a chance that they can reach that level here in the next week or 2.
Yeah, big thing is that they're at home. They've only lost, I believe, just once this season at Value City Arena. They'll be home for that game on Sunday. And then, of course, if they win, they move on to regionals, which for them would be a trip out to Portland. Part of a really big weekend, by the way, here in Columbus, because then in the middle, there's that NIT game quick thoughts, Joe, on that NIT game against Virginia Tech, second round game for Jake Diebler and the Ohio State men.
So the fact that Ohio State snuck by basically in the first game, I thought was pretty interesting. Now, part of the reason that happened was that they really only had 1 day to prepare for a team out of the Ivy League that plays a completely different style. That challenge will no longer exist against Virginia Tech, and they will have multiple days to prepare for this game and put together a good plan. We've seen this coaching staff set the team up for success here in the last, several weeks, 7-2 in that stretch for Ohio State. So I expect to see, the Buckeye team that we saw 2-3 weeks ago, Saturday night against Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I think that with the time to prepare, being at home, the team's locked in. They're playing their best right now. I expect them to win the game and move on.
And I don't know if you know this, Joe. I used to cover Virginia Tech.
I do know that.
That was my last stop. 2 players you probably want to keep an eye on that Hokies squad. Hunter Couture, I think he just passed the 1,500 career point mark. He's unstoppable when he's on. And then Sean Padula, the point guard there, he kind of runs that offense. So definitely not a team that the Buckeyes can just overlook. But I think certainly if they play the way that they did the other day in that first round game, I think Ohio State should be able to be victorious, but we'll see because it's sports and that's what happens. Anyway, that's Sports Director Joe Nugent. I'm David DeGuzman. Enjoy the weekend of hoops, everyone. Hope your brackets are still intact.